Well, hello there. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on Overflow today. We are pre-recording this, so it will come live to you at noon. And you might notice that we've all got the same color curtains behind us. There's a new trend right now, and so we all bought these and put them in our home. Actually, no, that's not the case. We are in a trailer working from the beach today. Look at that. Not too bad. And so we're getting away today, working on some future sermon series and stuff like that for the church. And so we wanted to, get this overflow to you. So today, as always, on Overflow, we're focusing on the sermon from the day before. We're going to reflect on it a little bit and process, what it means for our daily living. We're going to spend the majority of our time today really talking through our weekly questions, which have to do with your Enneagram type, where you go in growth and stress, and what levels of health and unhealth look like for you. So we'll get a chance to share those. If you have not already, make sure you check out nl-cc.org/Enneagram, take the assessment, read up on your results, and find out what type you identify with in order to get the most out of the series that we're doing. Today is a really important day because understanding where we go in health and where we go in unhealth is really important. And so, as always, we've got a wonderful crew here today. And so we have Aaron with us, as well as Ryan Bogert with us. And looking forward to our discussion time. So just to give us a little recap on the sermon from yesterday, we walked through the Enneagram Type 4. And if you're still confused, so are we. And so are the fours. That's just the reality. They are definitely unique, and they are more difficult to understand, often because there's just a lot of depth to them, and there's just a lot of uniqueness to them as well. And so it takes a little bit more time to understand them and get to know them, but they are incredibly important to us, and we really appreciate you fours. So we walked through the Enneagram Type 4 and the story of Saul. Saul was chosen as Israel's first king by God through the prophet Samuel. And we talked about how Saul related to the four as really unique, as really different than others, as really had moments where he was confident and in front of people, and other moments where he was withdrawn and afraid. And so he related to the fours in a lot of ways. Fours want to be seen as unique. They have this interesting tension where they want to be seen as unique, but they don't want to be discovered as being basic. And so they want you to get to know them, but not too much, because there's this fear of being found out. Fours are also incredibly emotional. They're incredibly empathetic. They're very deep, and they're very much into sensing the beauty in the world. And so they'll see beauty in relationships and colors and experiences and the weather and location. They're into aesthetics, and they're very sensitive to that. It's been said that fours don't feel emotions, they are their emotions. And so emotions are a very dominating force for fours. And so what we want to do is just kind of talk a little bit for a few minutes on type 4 and what stood out to us from the sermon and about type 4s and what's been helpful or formative. And then we're going to jump into our health and growth for today. So Aaron and Ryan, any thoughts on the sermon or anything we talked about, anything that stood out to you as interesting or that you related with?
Testing. All right, we're good. Okay, should be good. So I know this is probably Enneagram 4s, I think, are the most difficult Enneagram type to pin down and understand and to make it simple, because they do value uniqueness and complexity, and a lot of 4s feel like, oh, I'm very unique and no one else is like me. I liked the part of the sermon that touched on that type of social media envy that I think 4s have, because 4s often feel like, what does everyone else have that I'm missing, right? And that can, especially when in unhealth, and that can really manifest in ways that they're very envious. Like that was the core sin, I think, right? That's what it was. Core sin was envy, right? So, the idea of a 4 looking at other people's lives on social media and being like, oh, they're happy and they're doing these fun things. Why can't I have that? And I think all of us can, or at least I think most of us can struggle with that to at least some extent, at times, that social media experience. And I think that's why I think it's cool when we do these sermons, we talk about these personality types. I think there's always things in each type that we can connect and relate to, even if it's not our number. And then also things we can connect and relate to other people we know who may be that number or demonstrate a lot of traits of that number. So yeah, and so they're an enigmatic type, hard to pin down and describe as simply and as clearly as someone like the helper, Enneagram 2, who are very help oriented. But yeah, it's a very unique type. And yeah, those are my main thoughts about the 4. So Aaron, what about you?
Excuse me. Yeah. I don't know a lot of 4s, which I want to know more 4s. So if you're a 4 and you're watching, like, please shoot me an email, because I don't know that many 4s, but I loved learning more about you yesterday. I love in our little discussion guide, and it says they can feel the heart of God, and like, just like what an incredible value that is to the world and to the church. And then out of that, often being very artistic or very expressive and very empathetic, and like just how incredibly valuable those are, and how those traits and those strengths can really point others to God, and how 4s can be present in all emotions, right? And just be comfortable in all those spaces. And I love that. And so I don't know very many 4s, but I want to know more 4s. And I loved learning about 4s yesterday, and just how incredibly unique and different and just in touch that you are if you're 4, with, I don't know, just the range of emotion, and just, I don't know, I just love it. So but I don't know that many 4s, so I have a little bit harder time like pinpointing things, because it's just, for me, a lot of it is just theoretical, because I just don't know that many 4s. But yeah, I love it. And I love beauty and creativity, and just that the angle that the 4s bring to the world, I just think is really special and unique, and I love that.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I really appreciate too about the 4s is they really help us to see the beauty in the world. And without them, things are very bland. And I appreciate that 4s are very deep and very sensitive, and they want to have real, authentic engagement in conversations with people. They get pretty burned out by just surface conversations or talking about things that don't really matter. And so I appreciate that depth that the 4s invite us into. We need the 4s in the church to be alive and active. Your expression, your sensing of the heart of God, your creativity is so needed in the church. Without you, we are surfacey, we are bland, we are boring, we are disconnected. And so thank you for that. Another thing that kind of stood out to me about the 4s is in stress, they're so concerned with themselves, how they're perceived, how they're seen. But in health and growth, they become more aware and concerned with helping others to see their beauty, or calling the beauty out of others. And so they're more confident in relationships with other people, and they're less insecure. And so you just see this big growth of generosity from going from being reclusive and isolated and nobody knows me and nobody gets me and alone, to confident in friendships and relationships, and inspiring beauty and creativity in others as well, and affirming it and calling it out and being a source of support, affirmation, and encouragement. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing that we see in the 4s. And so today, what we're going to be talking about for the rest of our time is really, what does it look like for your Enneagram type, for your personality, for you to grow to be more healthy? And what does it look like for you when you're in unhealth? We know from the Enneagram that some of the language for this is the growth and the stress line. So your growth line is that little arrow that goes from your number and to the next number. And then the stress line is that other arrow. So for me, a type 7, my growth line is going towards a healthy type 5, and my stress line is going towards an unhealthy type 1. And so it's helpful to kind of know these things. So we're going to talk about that for the rest of our time today. And I want you to be thinking about wherever you're at, what is your type, and what does it look like for you to be healthy, and what does it look like for you to be unhealthy? And so I don't want to start it off first, but I want to invite anyone who wants to start it off. Aaron or Ryan, what type are you, and what does it look like for you to be healthy, and what does it look like for you to be unhealthy?
Are we drawing straws? Am I going? Okay. Okay, so I'm a 1. And so in my health, I go to type 7, which Ryan Clement absolutely loves to, point out to me that, like, in my health, I go to what Ryan is. So in my health, then, so 1s can naturally, if gone unchecked, be, a little more critical or like dissatisfied with things, like always wanting to make things better. But then in health, like I feel like I lose some of that and really become content with how things are, or like being realistic and kind of, knowing good actions to take in moments, but not in critical ways, but in healthier ways. And yeah, so that's my health. I go to a 7 in health, and then in unhealth, I actually go to a 4. And so I've been learning a lot about what that might look like for me, as far as like, I don't know, I'm still really kind of exploring that, because I'm still learning a lot about the 4. But in my unhealth, then I go to a 4. So I guess in that I would be, I don't know. I don't know if you guys have any insight on that, because I'm still learning a bit about 4s. But that's where I go in my unhealth. So that's kind of the general lines of a 1.
Yeah, I think, on that, Aaron, part of the 4's unhealth is like isolation, is nobody gets me, it's reclusive. And so I would imagine, a type 1 is a little bit more structured and like, hey, this is the way things should be. And as things are not working out or there's stress incorporated, it can be like, nobody gets it, nobody's going, I'm just going to withdraw, I'm just going to hide, and just kind of go to isolation. 4s and unhealth also could just kind of be in like a dark, depressive space of just like, there's no beauty in the world, what's the point, I'm not. And so it's easy to kind of just get in that like defeated kind of isolated space. So I think that's at least one piece of the unhealthy 4 that perhaps you can relate to as being a type 1.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, my wife's a 1, like you, Aaron. So her unhealth line is also 4. And I would say, like, I don't know, the way I maybe could imagine it manifesting, and maybe at some points I've seen it manifest a little bit, is like, 1s feel like there's a right way to do everything, right? Like there's systems, there's the right way to do things, there's a wrong way to do things. And in unhealth, I see like a 1 like thinking, wow, no one else gets the right way to do things. I have to do everything like I'm the Uh-oh. Was I muted the entire time?
I don't know.
No, about halfway through.
Really? How did that happen?
Okay, we're live. Go.
Okay. 4s, 1s.
That was super helpful. So Ryan was saying that, like, I don't know how much of it got muted, but like 1s in the unhealth would go to like, nobody else can do it right, I have to do it all, like taking that on. That was really helpful. Both of you, thank you. That really helps me understand. I can relate to what both of you just shared in that, as a 1 going to unhealth and a 4.
Awesome. Yeah, glad that was helpful. For me, for the type 7, so I go more towards an unhealthy type 1 in stress. And just even reading some of the Enneagram Institute stuff of levels of unhealth, type 7s become desperate to quell their anxieties. So they become very anxious. They've got things and they just want to they want to make things okay. And they just want to bring satisfaction and bring positive experiences. Unhealthy 7s become very impulsive. They don't know when to stop. They just keep kind of going. Addictions and access take their toll, and they become abusive and offensive and dissipated escapists is what it says. And so I know that, as I reflect on some of my time in my life when I've been burned out, low sleep, exhausted, the twins were young, like kids, it was super stressful, lots of demands on work or school or all sorts of things. You just become incredibly manic and just looking for anything and everything that will just help you kind of get through the day. And I like to bring up this story. My wife, she said she doesn't listen to these all the time. So hopefully she doesn't listen to this one, because I'm going to tell you a story about her. So we were on our honeymoon, and we were snorkeling in Kauai. And she was just a little bit ahead of me, maybe 8 or 10 feet. And the water was probably 12 feet deep where we were, but there were some rock structures that were maybe 6 feet tall. So, it's not too deep, but you're seeing all these cool fish, and but there's some rocks and stuff. And so we're kind of snorkeling. It's hard to hear underwater, but I all of a sudden start hearing like, so I'm like, oh no, what's going on? And I look ahead and she's like frantic, and I'm like, oh no, I got to rescue her. So I swim over, and all I hear is jellyfish. And next thing I know, I get kicked in the worst part to get kicked in, and I get punched in the face. My mask gets ripped off, and then I get pushed off, like as if she pushed off me, and she got away. She escaped just fine. And so here we were, and I ended up being like a launching pad for her. I got kicked, I got hit. She like ripped off my mask, not on purpose. She was just trying to get out of there because she saw a big jellyfish, which I never saw. And is still a mystery to this day. Somehow it swam away. It's still debated for us, but I just think of that picture because in that moment of panic, she just grabbed anything and everything she could to just get out of there. It's like, it didn't matter that it was her poor husband that was left in the dust. It didn't matter that she could have cut her foot on the rock or anything else. She lost like her snorkel and a fin during this time. I had to swim down and get it. And so for her view just got survival. Like that was what needed to happen the moment. And that's how sevens get in unhealth. They don't care about anything else. It's just survival, whatever I can do to get out of this. And the most unhealthy sevens become addicts. They're just addicted to just trying to make themselves feel better in all their pain. And so that's rough. That's scary. But I appreciate that description because it's helpful to know if I'm starting to head in that trajectory that, hey, I'm starting to get off. But healthy sevens, according to Enneagram Institute, are easily accomplished achievers. They're generalists, so they're good at many things. They're multi-talented. They're practical, productive, and they kind of cross-fertilize lots of interests. And I think that's who I want to be. Like, that's what I want to be like. I really enjoy that. So a 7 goes to a healthy 5 in health. And a 5 is much more of an investigator. They're taking the time to research, to figure out what's going on. A 7 is going to go for all these different ambitions, but by growing to be more like the 5, rather than just having all these ideas everywhere and all this enthusiasm, it's a more focused enthusiasm as we research and we learn to do things well and effectively and in a well thought out way. So my all sorts of crazy ideas as a 7 starts to get a little more honed into, here's a great idea. Let me research it. Let me think it through. Let me figure it out. Let me do something really, really well. And so 7s can become much more productive and effective rather than just full of ambition. And so, yeah, those are some of my thoughts on the 7.
I guess that means it's my turn. So I'm an Enneagram 5. We are the investigators. And, 5s are very analytical. We like ideas. We really love diving into ideas that we're passionate about and learning as much as we can. And we're all about like learning. One of my favorite things that makes me, Enneagram 5 is whenever I don't know something, someone asks a question and I don't know the answer, I Google it and I learn it. So next time someone asks that question, I can answer it. And I have a lot of random knowledge about random things in my brain because of that. And I'm, as an Enneagram 5, I'm good at remembering those things. But what I'll say, so I'll start with my like stress line and unhealth. I'll make a joke later. I'll start with my stress line and unhealth. In unhealth, I move towards a 7, which is what Ryan Clement is. Well, earlier I thought it was funny because you said you keep reminding Erin how she goes to you in health. Well, I'm going to keep reminding you go to me in health. Anyways, got a kind of a triangle going on a little bit, but anyways, no, but so for me, I go to a 7 in unhealth. Yeah. And an unhealthy 7. Yes. So in unhealth, 5s can be very nihilistic. And I've seen this at points in my life. And, if you don't know, being nihilistic means like, oh, nothing, everything is meaningless. Nothing matters, and that happens because 5s tend to analyze a lot of things. And when you analyze a lot of things, you break down the ideas. At the end of the day, it's like, you can't prove anything and you don't know anything. And nothing makes sense and nothing matters. We're all just going to die because you analyze everything. It's like, we're all going to die anyway. So nothing matters. So just do whatever you want. Right. And then an unhealthy 5 or a 5 in unhealth moves towards the unhealthy 7, which is I just do things that I want to that are fun. And if I'm stressed, I just go and do a bunch of fun things and avoid my problems. I don't face my problems because nothing really matters anyways. So I just kind of do what I want. And then stay unhealthy, and in that also kind of being cutting off from other people because really just doing whatever they want and being self-focused and self-interested. And 5s are also generally kind of a more reclusive, isolated Enneagram type. And in unhealth, that is magnified to a very unhealthy extent. They completely be recluded from the rest of the world. And they just do what they want and explore the interests that interest them because nothing matters anyways. Might as well just do what you want. In health, 5s go towards a healthy 8. And the 8 is the challenger. And 8s are probably the most conflict-oriented type in the sense of like they're not afraid of conflict. They want to take things on. So the way that I understand a 5 goes towards an 8 in health is what you believe in because you've analyzed it and you've thought through your beliefs, and therefore you're willing to make a stand for things. Because if the unhealthy 5 says nothing matter, they don't have anything to stand for, right? You don't believe in anything. You don't have anything to stand for anyways. But when you're in health, you know what you believe in, you know what you stand for, and I'm going to stand for this. I'm going to stand for that. And also being decisive, because it's easy for 5s to get distracted and scattered, and which, I'm often scatterbrained, but, that's a whole other thing. But it's either 5s get distracted and scattered and to not focus on solving their problems because nothing matters. So they just kind of do what they want, right? But a healthy 5, when they're faced with stress, when they're faced with problems, they are decisive like an 8. They choose to meet their problems head on like an 8, and they actively try to problem solve. And then when they know that, they know how to solve problems that face them, they know what they stand for, and they're willing to make a stand and fight for things they actually believe in. So I think a healthy 8 believes in things, a healthy 5 believes in things and is willing to make that stand, problem solve and fight for it, where an unhealthy 5 doesn't believe in anything, does what they want, and is nihilistic and reclusive from society and doesn't care what other people think. So I don't know. Those are some of the things that I take away from like where I've seen health and unhealth. And like I've had points in my life, especially like in high school, where I think I would be pretty unhealthy as a 5, and I was very depressed, and that my faith I was very questioning in my faith at that point, to the point where like I didn't really know if God existed when I was in high school, and therefore I didn't really believe in anything, and then it came to a point where that shifted for me, and I experienced Jesus for the first time. It's like, no, I know what I believe in, right? So for me, my faith has been a way of helping me move towards health as a 5. So I just said a lot of words, and any thoughts on that? Ryan, you should have lots of thoughts since you go towards me in health. So,
I do, but you have to mute first.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I do have many thoughts. One of the things I was thinking through as you were sharing that is that the 5, along with the 4 and the 9, are what's called doing repressed, and that's their doing center is their weakest. So there's the doing center, the thinking center, and the feeling center. And so the 8 is like in the doing center. And so part of going from health is processing intellectually for you, going into like doing something about it, just like you were talking about. And so I think that's such a cool kind of growth line for you to not only process, but do something as a response. So I thought, that was kind of cool.
Can I say something? Yeah. And no, that's I think it's interesting to say that, because there are times where it's really like there are times if I'm confused or I don't know what the next step is, I have a really hard time initiating myself to do something about it. you know? And so when I know what I'm doing, and I get motivated, and I'm able to act on those things and to really be decisive. And sometimes it can be hard to activate that. So
Yes.
I muted somehow. I didn't mean to mute. Okay.
So be thinking about, what is your Enneagram type, and where do you go in growth and in stress, and what does health look like for you in unhealth, and what are some indicators that you are stepping into an unhealthy place, or some indicators that you're growing in health. As always, we want to look through these things with a biblical lens, and ultimately health is going to be more Christ-like. One of the common threads you'll see in all the Enneagram types is, for the most part, unhealth looks like insecurity in our type and utilizing the strengths of our type in unhealthy ways, or in bad ways, or in destructive ways. And health looks like being more secure in Christ, but then being able to be generous with others and people focused, and building others up and utilizing our powers, so to speak, or our strengths to benefit others and to help others, and to help people get along together. So be thinking about these things, process these things, and be better aware of how you function. So thanks again for joining us on Overflow today. We hope it's been helpful, informative, insightful, and encouraging. And we hope that you have a great week, and look forward to you joining us next week, next Monday at noon. So thank you so much, and God bless.